Welcome back. We're going to write some code in this one right here. So we have our password keeper app, and when we click login, right, what's going to happen here, right? So first of all, we should note that when we have an email password that the user's typed in, those are going to be sent to Firebase, of course. So we're going to have a method that's going to do that. And it's going to fire that off, and of course it needs to encrypt it, right? We don't want to send passwords in the clear, so it should be SSL encrypted password that's going across to Firebase. Firebase, of course, is storing all the passwords in a hash, so it can hash what we send over, compare the two, right? And then see if they match. If they do match, then it's going to send you a JOT, or what's called a Java Web Token, back to your app that basically gives you permission to continue communicating with the Firebase, right? Now I will say that the JOTs are completely hidden by Firebase, right? They're going to be used internally, so all we're going to need to do is tell it to authenticate, and then write a callback about what we should do once it comes back authenticated. Okay, so the first question, as we mentioned, is to check out whether the user is even authenticated, right? We'd like to persist authentication once they close up the app. You know, if they go away, they come back, they should stay authenticated unless they've logged out, right? No one wants to be typing in their email and password every single time that they open up their app. So we can check that, and it's pretty straightforward to do. So we're gonna write some code in onCreate, and essentially it's just a condition here. All right, so for we're gonna create a Firebase. We can actually use any path. It doesn't have to be the user's path. It could be anything. So I'm just going to use the base right here. And then Firebase has a method called getOff, right? And we can check to see if it exists, right? If it does and it's not expired, we go to the password fragment. If it's null, or maybe it does exist, but maybe the authentication has expired, then we're going to have to go to the login fragment. All right, let's test this out and see how it works. So in my main activity, up in onCreate right here, so sort of above this, I'm going to create a Firebase. So Firebase. We're for the Firebase. Okay, so Firebase, and I need to give it a URL here, and the URL we defined in constants dot Firebase URL. Okay. And then we'll put in our if statement right here, and here's my expired method. So let's see, so I want to go to the login fragment if getOff is null, right? So they just haven't authenticated, or they have authenticated, but that right there is expired. So, and you'll see that this right here actually returns an auth data, which is the parameter to this is expired method. So, right, is expired here, and like so. All right, and if that's the case, we don't want to go to the password fragment. Instead, we want to switch to the login fragment. All right, and we'll put the password fragment here in an else clause, and clean that up. Like so. Right. And test it out, see if you get a login fragment that opens. You shouldn't be authenticated, so you should get something. All right, so if you run it, you should get your app. So I'm gonna go ahead and type in one of these guys, a@b.com, and I got my passwords, and I'm all excited, and I click login, and I get the little spinners, and spinners. Well, okay, so what's happened here? All right, so I checked, I wasn't authenticated, so it jumped me into the login fragment. Like we said, login fragment, right, gives us a place to type in our email password. When we hit that button, there's a callback, so it's calling back into our main activity, into this method here on login. And Tyler set it up so that it would essentially be in this state where it's showing the little progress spinner here. So that's all it's done, right? So there's nothing else going on. So we've got some code to write here, right? All right. So what about login, right? So login is super easy with email password. we're just going to have to handle the callback, right? So the auth result handler here. All right, so so in login, we're going to get that same Firebase, and then we're going to do auth with password, and we're going to pass in the data that Firebase needs, right? So an email, a password, and then a handler, so that once it actually gives us that token back, we can tell it what to do next. So let's do that. All right. So again, I'm going to make a Firebase. Firebase constants dot Firebase URL, and we will do Firebase dot auth. You see it actually has a few different ones here, and we'll be using a couple of them. Auth with password. All right, auth with password takes an email, password, and a handler. So the callback. So these are the ones that the user has typed in that in the fragment. So we just pass those right along. So email, password, and then we need a handler. So let's create our own. You can call it what you want. You could call it like, you know, an email password auth result handler, right? That'd be great. Except what we're going to find is that it's not just for email password. We can use the same handler for any of the authentication methods we use. So let's keep it a little bit more general than that. So it's a new myAuth result handler. All right, you can leave off the my if you want. Just trying to distinguish it from the Firebase class auth result handler. So let's declare this right here. So class my auth result handler is going to implement Firebase's auth result handler, like so. And let's see, I've got some methods here to implement. So we have unauthenticated and unauthentication error. Okay. So the key thing to notice here is that when it returns, it also gives an auth data. So this is the same auth data that we were getting here, right? So what we're gonna do is the same thing, right? We're gonna switch to the password fragment. It turns out that you don't want to just go to users though. Remember, we wanted each user to have their own UID encoded into the path. So we actually want to go one step further. So I'm going to add a slash onto users, and then go ahead and pull out their user ID. So authData.getUID. All right, like so. And actually, this is good to do even in the beginning. So if they were authenticated when they started, so I'm going to copy this line of code back up into onCreate, and boom, just so that when we switch them in there, we go into auth data. Well, auth data again is just this Firebase.getAuth. And it looks like I've used getAuth a few different times here. I could easily make that into a local variable if I wanted to. Okay, so switch to password here. If I'm not authenticated, I can log it. So I think that's a reasonable thing to do. So log so we'll say error, and I made a tag for this. So constants.tag, it's just the string FPK for Firebase password keeper. And then we'll just, I mean, we can sort of, you know, on authentication error, and we will just print out from the Firebase error, we'll give it the message. So good practice just to put some kind of log there. All right, and let's run it and see if we can log in. All right, so you've run it again, and you have it here. So go ahead and type in whatever you used for an account here. So mine is this a@b.com, and then I wanna log in here, and it's gonna jump over to Firebase and check that I'm authenticated, pass back the JOT, and since I am authenticated, right, so now it goes ahead and it switches to the password fragment here, and sort of sends me to the right place where I can read and write data. All right. So let's test this out to see how it works. So go ahead and make yourself some dummy data. So again, your choice as far as what you want to play with here. You could even just use sort of scrambled letters if you really want to. I'll do that for the password. Shall, yeah, wonderful, looks great. password. Great. And it's going to create one, and we have access to it, and it looks good. If you want to try it, you could hit log out. I'd really like to have two users, and I need to be able to log out to see if my second user can't see this one. So I guess that's what's coming next here is log out. So let's catch the slides up. So we saw our auth result handler here, and again, a couple methods that we wanted to write. So the unauthenticated callback, and then the error. Okay, and again, just sort of the important thing here is that once they actually were logged in, then we don't just give them access to the whole thing. We push them right down to their part of the JSON tree that they have access to. All right. Good. So, and we fix that in onCreate as well. We tested it out. Now it's time to do logout. Logout is super simple, right? So they're going to click this button up here, or the little menu item. It's going to call back to the activity, and the activity has an onLogout method, and we're just going to need to tell it to unauth, right? So here it is. Here's the code in all its grandeur, onLogout. All right. So again, get that Firebase reference, and then unauth, and then switch to the login fragment. All right. So since they're logged out, we need to go back to login. All right, so scrolling down a little bit here, so past these login ones, we've got the logout, right? And probably should have marked the other ones as done as well. So again, get yourself a Firebase reference. Doesn't matter at all where in the tree. So the root is just fine. So constants.firebase URL, like so, and then firebase dot unauth is what we need. We're now logged out. Okay, so switch to the login fragment. Test it out. Okay, so I'm back and my app launched, and we see first of all that the checking at startup did work, right? So I was already authenticated, so it jumped me right into my account right here for GitHub. So now let's try to log out, and if we log out, it's going to bring us back to our main screen. If you have a second account, now is a good time to play with it. So mine was beatc.com, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and click login, and we should log into a different one. So again, this is a different user, so they can't see the other password that I made. So I'm just gonna put in some whatever here. Okay, yeah, whatever it gives me. Just fine. Okay, so here's some data that I'm gonna end up blowing away later anyway. So this is what I have within user B. If I'm gonna log out, go back to user A. Again, just trying to make a point right here. You don't have to do all of this if you don't want to right now. 3, 4, 5. I log back in, and again, no access to user B's data, right? So email, password authentication, very simple. And in fact, we're done, right? So that is really all you need if you're going to do it on Firebase, right? Again, you would need to handle the creating new users, but for something really simple, yeah, this works pretty well, certainly for toy apps. Secure for each user. All right. So next time we get into the fun stuff, which is going to be to handle sign-in using Google accounts. Right. See you then.